you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. I hope everybody had a wonderful and very happy Easter. I did. We did, for sure. All right, if you didn't already contribute and share far and wide the public polling project, because we're coming up on that time, it's almost the end of the month. All right, so share it far and wide, share it with people that you think like-minded, would like to see accurate results. And definitely when you do give, do not forget to give us a little bit of insight into what you would like to see us poll. And when you do it, you can still put yourself as anonymous, but leave that comment. Of course, if you're watching on Rumble, check out the Locals community below and right up there at the top. Subscribe to peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, so let's get into this. First and foremost, we're going to finally go over the social desirability bias indicators, or at least as it relates to pollsters. Comfort level during interviews with pollsters, all right? And as you know, if you follow the project, we do family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, strangers, and pollsters. And today we're going to go over pollsters, and we're going to see how that has changed since the Biden, if it has changed. And if so, how? Since the start of the Biden administration until now, and whether or not we can expect it to impact the results of the election, right? How far off could some of the polls be given what we saw before 2020? But before we get into that, all right, some of you know last week because I posted it, all right? We were, and I'm sure it's not just us. If you tell your audience about anything negative, if you tell your audience or have any negative coverage of Ukraine, the army of Ukraine, the regime in Ukraine, you are no longer allowed to collect ad revenue through any Google products, AdSense, whatever it may be. We are still streaming on YouTube, but I don't rely for them for ad revenue, so I don't really give a damn. And some of you saw me post that yesterday or last week. I don't do this show to collect ad revenue from Google AdSense. We have a self-sustaining business, and we do this show to get out information from another perspective that you simply don't get from a very corrupt and very biased corporate media and their friends in big tech. So we won't be giving this story from their pre-approved angle today. So let's just take a look at some of the headlines that you are getting from these people. The deadline that Russia imposed on Ukraine to surrender Mariupol, which has seen some, sadly, hard fighting, has expired. All right. It was there Wednesday. And this is from Major Serhev Volhynia. He is the commander of the Ukrainian 36th Marine Brigade. He said, and we've heard these statements before, we may have only a few days or hours left. They obviously are not expecting the fight to go their way. And if Russia makes a bigger push, then they will not be able to hold Mariupol or have any positions remaining in Mariupol, which really has been leveled. I mean, large parts of this area have been leveled. Meanwhile, Russia has stepped up their attacks in the Donbas. And if you have watched this show, you know that from the Russian perspective, this is not an invasion of the Donbas. This is a liberation of the Donbas. If you have allowed yourself to look at this conflict from all angles, or look, there's one version of the truth. There's one side's version of the truth. There's the other side's version of the truth. And then there is the truth. And the truth is that nobody in this fight is particularly a good guy. If you're looking for a good versus evil fight, you are barking up a dead chicken's. Eastern Europe is a place where you are hard pressed to find any good guys. The truth is, the people of the Donbas have been slaughtered by the Ukrainian army for going on a decade. You have seen the disgusting pictures. I don't have to put them up again. The Ukrainians have targeted food lines, homeless shelters, innocent civilians, and young women with their 10-year-old daughters, their 10-month-old daughters. I'm not going to put the pictures up again. That is the reality. Whether some search engine wants you to know it or not, whether some Western outlet wants you to hear it or not. This area, this is why the Russian people, regardless of what you hear in the media, support Vladimir Putin and support this effort. To them, the essential eradication of large parts of the Ukrainian army is a must, because they have seen the other side of the story that you have not. These are pro-Slavic, Slavic identified, Eastern identifying populations. They do not identify with the West. They do not want to identify with the West. And since the CIA-backed coup in 2014, almost a decade now, the Ukrainian army has been slaughtering these people. You hear they're resistance fighters, but for the actual photojournalists that went into the Donbas to tell you the story, two of which gave their lives at the hands of Ukrainian shells, they told a very different side of the story. Now, that doesn't make Putin a good guy in this situation here, folks. Because in international relations and in security studies, there is no good guy. There is only an international state of anarchy and nation states making decisions, rational decisions, based on security concerns. To the Russians, this effort to take the Donbas is a matter of nationalism. It's a matter of liberating pro-Russian identifying people. To the West, you hear a different side of the story. We'll see what happens in Mariupol in the next couple of days. But again, you were told that the Russians couldn't take this city. I don't understand what these lies and this propaganda, I don't understand what the goal of it is. All it has resulted in is the taking of more human lives. The inevitable result is going to be the same. Ukraine cannot stand up to Russia. They're fighting hard, you know? The truth is, it was a divided country before this invasion started. This was not a country that widely celebrated Vladimir Zelensky. He had an abysmal approval rating that could barely get out of the low 30s. Most of the time, it was in the 20s. He was, and pretty soon after, the man won in a landslide because he basically pissed everybody off. And everything he promised to do, he did not. He did not go after what was seen as the corrupt, by the way, pro-West, pro-Obama, and pro-Biden elements of the Ukrainian regime. He didn't. Maria Yovanovitch's friends, who have no problems taking orders from the embassy in Kiev, were still surrounding Vladimir Zelensky. He did nothing to get a hold of the corruption that he said he was going to get in and combat. He picked the wrong horse. He backed the wrong horse. He sat quietly while his one and only ally was being destroyed by Western media and Western intelligence services. And their allies in the US government, who rub elbows with Ukrainian arms dealers like Adam Schiff. He believed these people when they said that, they would help. If God forbid something like this ever happened, don't worry, we have your back. Apparently, he wasn't paying much attention to Muammar Gaddafi. Apparently, he wasn't paying much attention to the northern Kurds. Apparently, he wasn't paying much attention to some elements of the Afghan security force. This is the reputation the West has built up, particularly the US. Somebody on Local shared a very interesting poll with us a couple of days ago, and it was different countries. Who do you blame for the conflict in Ukraine? And I'm actually going to put it up. Hat tip to Virginia, which you'll see because I'm going to show you what I posted on Twitter. Hat tip to Virginia, because you will see that there is a very, very, very different point of view around the world, or different point of view from the one that you are told. Okay, who is to blame for the conflict in Ukraine? In Japan, a very key U.S. ally, of course, you have even more so than the United States, overwhelming agreement that this is Russia. This is Russia's fault. On the other end of the spectrum, you have an overwhelming belief that this is the fault of the United States in NATO, in countries like China. Look at India, once our ally, who the Biden administration and the alliance of neocons and neoliberals have succeeded in pushing into the arms of the Chinese and the Russians. Look at India. They view Ukraine generally as a patsy. That's what that shows you right here. Not many people blame them, but they just view them as a patsy caught in between forces greater than them. And actually, it's a great comment here, right here. You can probably see it. India gets it, does what's best for their country while having a very realist foreign policy. Exactly. At VolfFan05. The United States and NATO combined are held more to account than Russia. You have Turkey and others who do not view Ukraine as, the main, country to blame. But very much, again, if you combine NATO and the United States, more people blame them than they do Russia. And down the line. The Western powers, honestly, who gives a damn what they think? They are weak and have no military strength. As France has shown time and time again, they will not come to our aid if we need them. So I don't really particularly care that they don't hold the United States to account as much as some of the others. It almost doesn't matter. Even a significant chunk of the United States, the people of the United States, hold their own country to blame. Now, of course, that number is far greater for Russia. But I think this is illuminating if you're really looking at what this says. There are two different worlds. To the right side of this chart is a balancing coalition that we have no prayer to balance against. We cannot counter India and China along with Russia. We can't do it. So everyone who agrees with us and holds us in such high esteem are a bunch of weaklings. And that's the raw truth of it. They've been told a completely one-sided version of this story. So congratulations. So again, I ask, what is the point of this propaganda campaign? What is the point? It's not helping our relative balance of power. It's not helping our relative position and standing. It's not. It's hurting us. Stronger forces, stronger balancing coalitions are moving against us. The weak are jumping on our ever shrinking bandwagon. And by the way, our ever weakening bandwagon. What good is a bandwagon if the axle's ready to crack anyway? The United States gets weaker and weaker every year. What good is a bunch of other weaklings relying on us to take care of them? I don't know what price we're all willing to pay here for nothing. Russia's making more money than ever on their oil exports. What have we done to them? There is some mystique that Putin has lost here with the power of his military, since they hadn't really used it in force. But that also comes with a caveat, and that caveat is ignorance. Ignorance to how the Russians fight. They don't fight like us. So when people look at what is going on in Ukraine, oh, well, I guess Putin wasn't as strong as we all thought he was. This is how they fight. Unlike us, the Russians are willing to lose people. They would rather engage in unsophisticated sieges that last a longer time and draw out their opponent and weaken them over time. That is the resolve of the Russian people, is where their strength lies. We do not have that resolve. So we go for shock and awe, sophisticated shock and awe. And that may seem all very dominant, and that may seem very superior to you. But what has it really given us in the last 30 years? More if you count other conflicts, peripheral conflicts. It has given us short-term gains, instant gratification, which ultimately and inevitably, 6 months down the road, leads to the realization that we always prematurely declare victory, and we're left with a bait and bleed operation that just slices us with 1,000 cuts and bleeds us out over the course of 10 years. So for all the fancy stuff, in an effort not to lose a single damn person in a conflict, there is never a decisive win. That's the reality of it. So we were told Ukrainians are just fiercely defending Mariupol, and God, Russia turns out to suck, and they're not as strong as we thought they were. Really? Because all I see is the same damn result. I see a major begging for his life. Only it's been weeks and weeks and weeks since the start of the bull. And God knows how many more are dead in between this time period. How many died in between this time period? Military and civilian. The inevitable result is still going to be the same. There was no point here. We just went past Easter weekend. It's supposed to be a celebration of eternal life. Well, that's lost on us in the cheerleading. It's not patriotism, folks, if it's blind. It's ignorance. Anyway, some 5 million Ukrainians are now refugees since the start of this conflict. Conflicts like this that lead to humanitarian disasters are destabilizing. Look at how badly Europe destabilized itself the last time they created a conflict and a humanitarian crisis like this. That would be Syria. Ask the people of Poland and Hungary why they vote the way they do. What did an influx of millions of Syrian refugees do for civil society in Germany? What did it do for them? Aside from an increase in their rape statistics. This will be different, of course, because it's a different problem. And for Democrats, I'd argue, you may not want to cheerlead the influx of Ukrainian refugees into the West and the United States. You may not want to, because balkanized Eastern Ukrainian communities voted heavily Republican and for Donald Trump in 2020. So you spent 30, 40 years trying to get a migration of Latin Americans that's about to backfire on you. You may want to think twice before you try Eastern Europe, who are Orthodox Christians or Eastern Orthodox. May not be a wise move. How about you just stop destabilizing the rest of the damn world, worry about your own problems and your own people, which is what the voter wants you to do. But that is just simply always the last priority that Western leaders have. The safety and well-being of their own citizens is always at the bottom of the barrel in their priority list. You come last to these people. You're paying a fortune more at the grocery store and at the gas pump. You're going to pay more because we haven't even hit the driving season yet. Putin's raking in the cash. We're losing our place as the standard currency. For what? All for what? This was stupid. All of this was stupid. Starting from the coup in 2014. Not to mention, again, I don't want to put the pictures up, but the evil that we have supported. And it is evil. It doesn't matter if it's committed by Vladimir Putin, Petro Poroshenko, who didn't believe the people in the Donbas had a right to exist. For all of you out there, by the way, who think that this like Nazi ethnic cleansing story is Russian propaganda. And Vladimir Zelensky, the murders, the wholesale slaughter of innocent people in eastern Ukraine and in the Donbas and other regions has slowed down, but it certainly did not stop. It didn't stop. All right, so, again, as time goes on, since the last time I went on my little rant, how many more people have died from the ultimate result anyway? I just, maybe 2 weeks ago, recalled a story to you listening to Drive Time Happy, whatever, morning radio, where this guy was reading, and it's a conservative, was reading almost daily these emails he was getting from his source in the U.S. military. I just recalled to you one of his letters about Mariupol. 2 weeks ago, they were telling you Russians were basically stuck in the mud. Look, there's more ridiculous headlines today, even with all of this going on. All right, I think it's Newsweek, that they're citing Ukrainian officials that Russian commanders are ready to revolt against Vladimir Putin. No, they're not. More crap one day after another. And just 2 weeks ago, reports that, Russians were going to have to give up in Mariupol. They're going to have to back away. This is, so by the way, just 35 minutes ago, Russian troops issued a new ultimatum for Ukrainian troops in Mariupol's Azovstal steel mill. Why? Why a steel mill? Again, Russia never engaged in a shock and awe campaign here, ladies and gentlemen, so you shouldn't have expected them to steamroll right through Kiev. That's not what they're doing. This was demilitarization from the beginning, and now they're on to industrialization. Always with the same inevitable result. Why do you think Zelensky, just last week, was ready to give in to Russia's demands? Because he's winning the war? Use your head, folks. Use your damn head. He's trying to make sure he keeps his at this point. So, I don't know how to say this nicely. Don't be so stupid. Not that it's like a great idea to insult your audience, but war propaganda is always the most difficult propaganda to resist. It's always the most difficult propaganda to see through and to try to ferret out the truth because you want to believe it. It's always phrased in these moralistic terms. They pick the good side, they pick the bad side. You don't want to hear anything else. It's the nature of how Americans specifically are. You want to be on the side of right. You don't want to think that your government may be doing this to avoid, their own sins being exposed to the world. You don't want to think that your own government may have a role in genocide. Yeah, 3 months ago. Right. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. 3 months ago, the Russian forces were going to starve to death in 3 days. They got 3 days worth of rations. Yeah, I remember. That was USA Today. They got 3 days left. And then they run out of food. And the Russian offensive is going to end. I mean, folks, get your heads out of your... It's total propaganda. Just because you don't understand how the Russians fight does not mean that they're not fighting. Maybe they're not meeting their goals as much as they'd like to meet them, but it doesn't mean that they're still not achieving their goals nevertheless. Ukraine was a divided country, unlike Russia. Zelensky was not a popular leader. Do I have to go through all these charts again? You know what? Just for people who don't believe me. Here we go. Let's grab Zelensky's approval rating. Give me 1 second. Always got to do it. By the way, we're not exactly talking about right-wing news sources here, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let me stop sharing this one. Let me pull up this one. This is what Vladimir Zelensky looked like before the invasion of Russia. All right. Not a popular guy. Not a popular guy at all. This is Statista. In general, do you approve or, it always does this. It's a huge PDF. You approve or do you not approve of the activities of the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky? In June of 2021, 34.1% approved, 52.7% did not approve. In July of 2021, 29.3% approved, 56.1% did not approve. And right before the holidays, right before the pivot into conflict, 28.2% approved, 56.9% disapproved. Could you imagine a president with approval ratings like this? Taking you into a war? Do you really think that the people of Ukraine are 100% behind this man? They weren't to begin with. He was elected in a landslide. Why? The biggest issue was corruption. And who was the target of that? Who was branded the face of that corruption? The United States. The embassy in Kiev was viewed as meddlers. All of the Democrats' top witnesses in the impeachment of Donald Trump were among the worst offenders. Maria Yovanovitch. Yuri Lutsenko, who, by the way, he wanted to come to the United States because that was the guy that Joe Biden forced Petro Poroshenko to replace Viktor Shokin with. So Viktor Shokin was the general prosecutor who was investigating Hunter Biden and Burisma. Joe Biden would not give the money, the $2 billion in foreign aid to Ukraine until they got rid of Viktor Shokin. They did by replacing him with Yuri Lutsenko. To this very day, the State Department denied Lutsenko's request. By the way, the buzzing you were hearing before was L. Todd Wood of CD Media, and he has interviewed Lutsenko himself. And Lutsenko to this very day maintains that Maria Yovanovitch walked into his office with a do not prosecute list. It wasn't, he said that the media's interpretation was like a language barrier issue, that he never meant that it was an actual do not prosecute, a list of names. But she came in and said, you will not prosecute these people if you want this money. Lutsenko, the so-called good guy that Joe Biden is referring to in the now infamous video talking to the Council of Foreign Relations, they now also call him corrupt. Why? Because he requested to come to the United States during the impeachment trial to testify. They denied him entry to the United States. They would not let him testify. Again, just because Vladimir Putin is a bad guy does not make Vladimir Zelensky and the people he allowed to remain in his orbit the good guys. It doesn't always have to be a dark versus light fight. It could just be bad against bad, because that's the way the world is. 28.2% approval. 2028 respondents. I mean, this is some crap. For people, and look at how Twitter celebrates this guy as if he's some beloved leader. I would have given him some credit if he had the cojones to stand up for himself. He didn't. He did not. He figured he'd get in bed and not piss off what may be his future enemies. So he did not step up to the plate. He did not. And that's why his approval went in the dookie. And the more you learn about the guy, the more he just looks like a fabricated figure altogether. This is like a complete fabrication. What do I mean by that? I mean that he just looks like somebody created this stooge. And they just put him up there as some Superman-like character, kind of like an Obama. Honestly. Came in with all this hope and change, promise of hope and change. And within the first 30 days, it gets real clear there is no hope for any change. Zelensky is a degenerate cokehead and a puppet. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, guys, what do you expect? He's literally an actor. And it is a green screen. Robert Barnes and I, all the blue checks really went nuts over that, didn't they? That's a freaking green screen. Anyone who's in production knows that's a green. That video was a green screen. He's walking the streets like Kiev, my foot. And the use of the strategic petroleum reserves is a complete waste. Every time a Democratic president does this, all they do is look, that's actual for that is for actual emergencies. It is not to attempt to manipulate the oil markets in the very short term. In the end, Putin's going to make out here, folks. He's going to make out here. Who gives a damn if he's got a coalition of weak Western nations against him, more than ever? Who cares? He's going to have India and the rest of them on his side. Thank you, by the way, Laura. Who cares? Honestly, it doesn't matter. I will trade 5 EU and NATO nations in a heartbeat for India. In a heartbeat. Goodbye. But again, don't worry. Maybe we'll get some weak Northman countries and they can line up to throw snowballs at our enemies. Such a joke. It's not a joke because it's not funny. It's not, I say this all the time, but it is the truth. The biggest problem the West faces is that our leaders are stupid. They're not smart people. These are relatively mediocre people who get in these positions. Like over time, it became more about birth, not merit. Look at Chris Wallace. It's a perfect example. one of the biggest pushers of propaganda under the Trump administration, masquerading as a legitimate hard news guy. If it wasn't for his father, Mike Wallace, he would have nothing. Talent? Did he really get to where he was on his talent? Come on. His last name, his daddy got him where he was. The media is infected with this problem, and so is our government. It's what Thomas Jefferson feared to be the artificial aristocracy. Him and our other founders wanted a natural aristocracy. Natural meaning whatever gifts God gave you, if you recognize them and you nourish them and you put them to good use, then you deserve to be where you were. You deserve to have this position of trust and probably had the wisdom to be there. Not because your daddy was some baron or some landowner. And now we just pick. That is a good point. Would we have had the supply chain issues exacerbate as badly as they did if it wasn't for Pete Buttigieg, an unqualified, unsuccessful mayor of a random small town in Indiana? He checks off boxes. So Barack Obama offered him a position in the administration to get out so Bernie Sanders didn't humiliate Joe Biden. He checked boxes. He wasn't qualified to do that job. He still isn't. Health and Human Services. Checks boxes. Failed at their position in Pennsylvania. Let their mommy escape the nursing home death trap that they created for everybody else's parents and grandparents. So don't be shocked when their response to COVID, though handed all of the tools on a silver platter, results in more deaths than when we didn't have a single treatment. Artificial aristocracy. But if you speak up about it, they'll take your ad revenue away. If you speak up about it, you may get canceled on social media. And if you speak up about it, you may get, especially if you're in the media or in the political class of any kind, you'll be relegated to no cocktail party invitation status. So it's no wonder when we look at this next thing here, and let's pull it up. We are building, just so everybody knows, it's not on Big Data Poll's website yet. Stuff like this will be available for locals, supporters. But we're working right now because we ask all of these questions with different groups of people. There'll be like a drop down where you can select. Who am I talking about here? Neighbors, coworkers, strangers, pollsters. We're going to look at pollsters, people's responses to pollsters. And I'm going to show you the back end, but it's not on yet because we need to give you a way to select through each one. It can't just all go on one chart. It's too cluttered. So there's 6 different groups that we ask, and we want you to be able to select a different chart, period, based on those groups. So figuring out, doing it now. All right, but here we go. Let me, if I show you, this is how I see it on my end. All right, and I'll bring it up, make it bigger. This is the trend over time since we started the public polling project. And I'm going to show you also, we'll compare this to what we saw in the battleground states, because I took a quick look at least regionally, which I want to be able to show you guys as well. It does look like in battleground states, it's worse, which doesn't really surprise me because they're under more scrutiny, right? If you live in Arizona, if you live in Florida, if you live in Pennsylvania, if you live in Michigan, if you live in Minnesota, if you live in Wisconsin, you're going to be subjected to a certain level of scrutiny and social desirability bias. It's intended. You're going to be subjected to it more than anybody who's just simply, under a national population. If you're in the state of California, you may have it in certain neighborhoods, but generally speaking, you all know how you're supposed to conform in a state like that. A state like New Jersey, a state like New York, you're probably not under that scrutiny that battleground states are under because they're constantly being campaigned in, and the money that's being spent is different. So it really doesn't surprise me all that much that some of these states look a lot worse. Like, for instance, and I'll just tell you, in Arizona, um, there was a huge chunk of people who flatly thought that they didn't want to tell their pollsters their beliefs. A lot more. It's usually like 1 in 5 nationally are very uncomfortable being honest with the pollster during the interview. And then it can be upwards of like 30% or plus in a state like Wisconsin. All right. So, which also, again, culturally, that kind of doesn't surprise me. You have some people in Wisconsin. Yeah, it's a largely rural state. It is not an overly urban state. It's more it's more rural and suburban, but more rural than Pennsylvania and Michigan when it comes to where the votes come from. The percentage that's coming from different areas. So they feel maybe largely disconnected from that urban center. But not really influenced by it. They just have the position that it's really none of your business, right? So I don't want to tell you. Meanwhile, in a state like Ohio, it's totally different, where they don't give a damn what you think about them. They have their views, and you can stick it up here, you know what, and that's it. That's how those people are. And that's like that in some places in Pennsylvania too, but generally speaking, there's a bigger social bias in a state like Pennsylvania than there is in some of the other ones. All right. So in any event, when we first started to ask, how comfortable or uncomfortable are you telling each group of people, in this case pollsters, about your political beliefs, such as how you intend to vote? In April of 2021, so a year ago, under the Biden administration, 31.3% said they were very comfortable. 25.6% said they were somewhat comfortable. 21.6% said they were somewhat uncomfortable. And 21.5% said they are very uncomfortable. That's a nightmare for a pollster. A complete nightmare. 4 in 10, more than 4 in 10 voters are uncomfortable being honest. That's a disaster. We can see it actually did slightly improve. And let's go to the high real quick, which was in September of 2021, right before, we got out of this was the Labor Day poll, and we're getting into right before the fall and the holiday season, right? 37% said they were very comfortable. That is our high. And by the way, that's our high, period. That we have never seen that in battleground states. It is never that high. Somewhat comfortable was 27%. So overall, you got about 64% of the population that is still comfortable. But, 19.9% said somewhat uncomfortable, and 16.1% said very uncomfortable. So we know from the polling we did before 2020 in these states that having numbers like this is a sampling error waiting to happen. We know that. This is still a big number. I would argue anywhere between, 3 and 10 is a flag. 1 in 4 could be a flag. I mean, we don't know yet because it's always been this bad. We started this in an environment where the media abuses people who have different points of view. We have no benchmark of a normal time. And maybe some other pollster had, at some point thought to ask these questions, but I wouldn't trust them even if they did. I would have liked to know what this number was in like 2005, right? Or 2004. Starting maybe even simply before the election of Barack Obama, which led to a period of hyperpartisanship. So much for the great unifier. Ticket splitting evaporated and actually slightly returned under Donald Trump. What does that mean? It means that people are willing to cross over and be less rigid with their party preference under Donald Trump than they were Barack Obama. So who was the unifier? Even subjected to the attacks he was subjected to. I find it incredibly fascinating that more people were willing to hear the other side's point of view during that period than under a period of total media and entertainment industry complacency in government and what is and what isn't socially acceptable. I find that incredible. You would, any informed hypothesis, should have held that when people are, are in a construct that is just so hive-minded, you would think they would be more unified. But in fact, it seems, at least in the United States of America, when people are subjected to the hive mind mentality, they resist more. Which is honestly, frankly, that's like hopeful. It's hopeful because it tells you people don't buy uniform BS. All right. So anyway, we went from the high of 37. Now let's just fast forward. We have seen some ups and downs, right? The somewhats I find interesting that they have been a lot more consistent. They don't swing quite as much as very comfortable and very uncomfortable. The low, by the way, at the same time that the very comfortable number hit its high, very uncomfortable hit its low. But nevertheless returned after a while to where it started. And it started at 21.5%. It's returning now. It's going back up. Right? Can we expect it to go back up? Very ticked down slightly for this month, but you can see overall it popped back. It increased again from its low. While somewhat uncomfortable is seemingly trying to reach a new high. We'll just have to see. That's why I'm interested to see where we stand with the public polling project this month. It's April 20th. If we really kick it up into gear and we have a week like we had last month for the 1 year anniversary survey, then we should be able to hit it. I think we're like a little over 1/6 the way there. And actually, I'll look right now. I'll give you guys an update. We are, let's see where we're at. It's refreshing. Just over 1/6 of the way there. So it can be done, especially if you share it, far and wide. But generally, we increased our base last month. So that's the name of the game, to increase our base. And actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, I have a call later today. Maybe we'll get some media help with trying to get the word out. Get the word out. There should be more of these, frankly. Polling should not be dominated by corporate media sponsorship. Go ahead, Laura. I hear you ready to say something. Isn't that
I was
later?
just saying, yes, you're right. At 3:30.
Let's see what they contacted us. And I'm not ready to tell everybody who it is yet, but they contacted us and we're like, hey, we think we may be able to help you out with this. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't want a, what's the word I'm looking for here, Laura? This has to remain independent, is what I'm saying. You want to help push it and get the word out? I'm all for that. But we cannot slap a name to this. It already has a name. The Public Polling Project. That's it. All right. So this is what we have seen with pollsters over the course of the year as far as how comfortable or uncomfortable people are sharing their political beliefs. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, guys. What you think generally, moving forward, what you think is going to happen with this. I wanted to know whether or not, not that I wanted to know. I strongly suspected this would be the case anyway, but the media wanted you to believe that all of this was coming from Donald Trump and his divisive rhetoric and even some of the things that he instructed, his followers to do or believe, don't trust this, don't trust that. The fact of the matter is, pollsters have become almost synonymous with the media. And that was not Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump was a reaction to the environment that the media was creating, where it wasn't all right to be the person you are or to hold the beliefs that you have. So that is They created the conditions that led to Donald Trump and why he was the Teflon Don, where like nothing would stick to him or hurt him with these people. Because no matter what, he was their guy fighting against this construct for them because they don't have a voice. They have no way to fight. So they put their faith in him to fight this persecution of their beliefs and who they were. And they grew very skeptical over polls, since the start. And in the beginning, if you remember the nomination process, Trump supporters loved the polls. They did. It was after they were betrayed in 2016, and they were betrayed. That guy led Hillary Clinton more than Hillary Clinton led him. That is the truth. I don't know how any other pollster saw otherwise. We started before the July 4th holiday. All through the summer, through the fall. It wasn't WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks reinforced the belief that they had on, that many Americans had with Hillary Clinton. I'm sure it cost her some votes, but generally speaking, the mood was like baked into the cake before this. And Trump had a lead more than he trailed. People did not like not only Hillary Clinton, but what she stood for. And after 8 years of Obama and being told, you're not good enough, the country's not good enough, accept this new weakness as normal, people wanted to rebel. And somebody like Donald Trump was that figure to do so. Now, I think a lot of people weren't clear what they were in store for. You do something like this, you better be ready for instability. You better be ready for that boat to rock, right? Talking about seasick voters. I think a lot of Americans didn't know what they were getting.
Let's be honest, though. Nobody liked Hillary, even when she was married to Bill Clinton.
They didn't ever like Hillary, Laura. We were around. Hillary was never popular. She got a sympathy vote when her husband cheated. She cried the crocodile tears before the New Hampshire primary, but she was generally unpopular with the entire electorate until she became the Secretary of State and had tried to reshape her image. But the minute the focus was back on her and voters, the media were covering her, even though they gave her glowing coverage, she's an unlikable woman, which is what I got to tell you about Kamala Harris. She was always going to be seen as this nasty, angry woman. And that's why I tell Republicans who, fear Michelle Obama, that's a joke. Go and look at Michelle Obama's speech in the Democratic convention in 2020 for Joe Biden. Go look at it. And you tell me whether Americans would not quickly put Michelle Obama in the same damn basket as Kamala Harris. A nasty woman. She doesn't inspire. She's mean. Men don't like mean women. It's just true. And by the way, women don't like mean women. I'm not going to view her as some, person to look up to. I don't know how else to put it. That's why Kamala Harris, as soon as the country got to know her, she crashed and burned too. Hillary Clinton, same thing. That's why Donald Trump, by the way, did what he did. Such a nasty woman. Do you remember that? That was completely intentional. Because, of course, that is what everyone is thinking. Men, women, this is nasty. Right? Because that's how most Americans think. What an obnoxious ass woman. So when he did that, he was speaking right to people who want to say it out loud, but, don't think they can. And again, there he is speaking for them and being their voice and going, that nasty woman. Right? He did that crap intentionally. He did that intentionally. The first debate against Joe Biden, I think he just went kind of nuts a little bit, but he was showing he was being a dominant figure. And in the end, amazingly, Hispanics told us they liked that performance. It was like the white yuppie who was turned off by that performance. And I don't, that's the word we all used to use, back in the day, the yuppie, but There's definitely something going on here in this country where you have, there's just no other way to put it. You have like the weakness of white educated people. It is. It's a yuppiness. We call them wannabe elites. They're not really in the club. Like Don Smith always says, they think they're in the club. They want to be in the club. That's why they generally don't challenge views that are held by like their urban counterparts. They're gentrified metro urban counterparts because they want to be badly in this club. So they see themselves as members of this class, even though they maybe not wannabes. Yeah, wannabe elites. That's what we call them, wannabe elites, because they're not in the club at all, and they never will be. I mean, for most likely, but they want to believe that they will be. So they get all very offended, like everybody else. When the media gets outraged, they all feign the outrage too. Oh, I'm so very offended. But in reality, they don't really know what the hell they're talking about or why they're offended. It's just they're going with the hive, because they want to be part of that. They view that as the construct has projected it. They're a better class of citizens. They're smarter. They're more educated. They're more advanced, basically, more progressive, right? And it's actually Vice. I mean, look, Vice is left wing, and they have an agenda. But they did have this like documentary where the difference between rural America, urban America, and they're getting these opinions. Those who were in urban America were basically saying like, we're better than them. The people in rural America were saying they're evil. So it's just really, this divide it really speaks to how they described each other, right? Really, or how they described each other really speaks to how big and how basically unbridgeable this divide really is. One views the other one as backward and inferior, and that's how the urban metro wannabes and elites view the rest of the country, the flyover country. And flyover country doesn't view anybody as like better or worse. It's more of those are bad people. So I don't know how you bridge that gap. I don't know how. I mean, unless as a nation, this goes to Benedict Anderson. Also, Nations and Identities by Pecora. We've talked about these books before. If you don't have this grounded belief in shared glory, shared suffering, shared principles, shared values, then you're not really a nation, and you won't be able to sustain unity. You won't. Which is, I think, where we're at right now. That's where I think we're at. So, while we're coming up on the hour, Laura and I, before I take a real quick break, and then I think maybe I'll do some questions and go. As elections get closer, Laura and I were thinking maybe of splitting the times up. I don't know. I'll get your thoughts on it. Don't worry. We're not jumping at anything. But we were thinking hour-long shows, maybe more times a week, because there's just not a lot of time in the day. And, I'm sure people who watch the show would like to see me busy, otherwise you wouldn't be watching it. So I don't know. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, check it out, send us your comments, but we were thinking hour blocks for more times a week. That's what TV shows are. That's why I've always avoided that. But at the same time, it's the same reason why Barnes and I maybe, did one show a month until we get closer to the election. Then we'll beef it up every week. It's just that there are things going on. There's only so much time in a day. All right. So throw us your thoughts on that. We'd like to get your thoughts, especially from locals. What else? Oh, yes. It is. Let me go check. I think Greatest Enemy is coming up it's a hell of a time to
just
re-ask.
if your schedule is going to be busier when we get closer to election day, and the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Very.
It's already getting to that point because, you have primaries. There are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes during primary season. that are actually, in my estimation, if not as important, more important than actual general election day. Because, well, you know the reasons. I don't have to get into it. There is a big difference between electing Joe Kent and Herrera Butler. Democrats really don't have this identity crisis going on right now. Republicans do. There's a big difference, but I don't even want to give anybody else any airtime. There's a big difference between electing David Giglio in CA13 than one of the others. There's a big difference, down the line. So, I'm trying to walk a line here, Laura. All right. So the stuff right now is important, and it's important to cover it, keep up with it, and even do your damnedest to make sure. Speaking of which, Barnes and I will have a list Monday, the beginning of a list Monday, which I know you guys have always been asking for. Who is, because it is this Monday, or is it next Monday, Laura? I think it's the next. What are the odds? Will be the first round of this is who really is representative of this district. This is who is representative of this state. All right. So I wouldn't call them, they're not endorsements. I mean, Robert and I wouldn't think we'd endorse people.
May
They
2nd.
This is who this district should basically be represented by. If you have populist beliefs, if you have conservative beliefs, if you have whatever, this is who should represent this district as opposed to who may represent it now. All right. So if, people always say, well, who is the better populist in that district? Who's the better progressive in that district? Who's the better whatever? That's more like what it is. I don't want to use the E word because it's really not what it is. All right. Where else? And then, I want to call it April. I hope we get it done by April. The April public polling project. We have, I think Laura is, let me go back a year and just check. Late spring. You'd call this late spring, right? Or no, early spring. No, we'll call it late spring. Let's see. We did, biggest enemy, greatest threat to the U.S. So which one of the following nations would you consider to be the single greatest enemy of the United States? Meaning, which poses the greatest threat? This is about this time. We have everything going on in Eastern Europe right now. I'm curious to see what the new numbers are. China had that going away last time, 42.2%. Russia was 22.2%. However, independents and Republicans did not view Russia as a threat like Democrats did. The vast, vast majority of people who picked Russia as the greatest enemy to the United States were Democrats. I'm curious, it was only 8.7% of Republicans said Russia. 64% said China. And independents were much more in line with Republicans on who they viewed to be a threat. North Korea came in third. Iran came in fourth. Other, we grouped together, 3.4. None, 3.4. None of the nations that were listed. And then other, 1.9. 11.1% was unsure. I am very curious to see what that number is again. So we have that. We don't have the COVID tracker in this one. We have some room. We asked about cyber attacks. If you remember, the Colonial Pipeline attack happened last time. But you know what? We'll go over this in more detail when we come back from the real quick break, and then we'll get into some questions. All right. My point is we have some room this time on the questionnaire that we did not have before. So, like I said, when you contribute to the public polling project, do not forget to put in a suggestion about what you would like to see. Because as my old daddy used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So the more people cite something or some topic, then obviously the more likely it'll end up in the actual survey. Okay. All right. With that in mind, we'll be back in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Take some questions.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away.
Stop. I have to share something. I have to just play this real quick. This pisses me off. Okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Hold on. I'm butting in. You may not be able to understand him, but it's on Twitter anyway, so you'll be able to read it. Okay? This is the crap I'm talking about. Right here. All right? Let's listen to him. 1 second.
Російська армія у цій війні назавжди впише себе у світову історію як чи не найбільш варварську і нелюдську армію світу. Цілеспрямовано вбивати мирних людей, руйнувати житлові квартали, руйнувати цивільну інфраструктуру, застосовувати для цього усі види озброєнь, і в тому числі заборонені міжнародними конвенціями. Це вже фірмовий почерк російської армії. І це така підлість, яка на покоління позначить російську державу як джерело абсолютного зла. Ситуація в Маріуполі залишається без змін, максимально жорсткою. Російські військові блокують будь-які намагання організувати гуманітарні коридори і врятувати людей, наших людей, місцевих мешканців, які опинились в руках окупантів. Намагаються депортувати або навіть мобілізувати в окупаційні війська. Доля, як мінімум, десятків тисяч маріупольців, які були раніше переміщені на територію підконтрольну Росії, невідомо.
Do I really have to, again, do I have to show you the images over the last 10 years in the Donbas and other areas of Ukraine where there were pro-Russian populations sitting on food lines being intentionally targeted by the Ukrainian army? Do I really have to show these images again? Who the hell does this guy think he is? And the Boston Marathon bombing. Oh, Russians aren't going to be allowed to run in the Boston Marathon. How ironic is that? Had the U.S. been competent enough to heed Russia's warning to us about the Tsarnaev brothers, then maybe that terrorist attack would never have happened. This guy has literally presided over the shelling of civilians before there ever was an invasion. Before there ever was an invasion. There wasn't total conflict. And this guy was killing civilians. And he wants to talk about absolute evil. His predecessor was barbaric. And he wants to talk about absolute evil. Unbelievable hypocrisy. I don't want to show the pictures again, but I'm like this close to it. Do we all need to see the images of fathers clutching their dead daughters who are waiting for something to eat? Do we need to see the images? It just makes me so angry that Western media is doing this because there's USA Today pushing the hell out of it. They have blood on their hands too. They don't want to tell you about the support that we lent to them to do this. They don't want to tell you from the Russian perspective that Russians are on a vengeance campaign against these people who have been slaughtering innocents for a decade. They don't want to tell you that. That stuff makes me so sick, it's not even funny. If Russians aren't allowed to run in the Boston Marathon, then why are we allowed to run? Did you ask a bunch of Iraqi civilians whether or not we should be able to participate in the Boston Marathon? Ukraine, for that matter. Hypocrisy. Gross hypocrisy. Have the audacity to use the E word. Butchering young mothers and their 10-month-old daughters is evil. Shelling an 11-year-old girl waiting for a piece of bread is evil. Killing 2 photojournalists who are there to take pictures of you shelling innocent people is evil. The audacity. I have smoke coming out of my ears. And what did I mess up on, Laura? She's telling me I did something wrong here. Absolute audacity.
That was a delayed reaction to when you put on the wrong stream when you went on break.
Oh, yeah.
I was making fun of you. I was like, ooh,
yeah,
you
that was
messed
the
up.
intro, not the break one.
Yeah.
By the way, don't forget to send your pictures of the People's Pundit merch to either send it through Locals, through the support thing on Locals. We'd love to see it. Or you can send it to producer at peoplespunditdaily.com. We'd love to see it. And, more than we'd love to see it, we want to put together a little collage of them so we can start playing other things on breaks as well. Yeah, unbelievable. I did hear about this on the Tennessee ballot. I would like to check it out before. You know how I always am when I want to speak about something. So, yeah, I did see that, and I'd like to see what's going on there. If that really is the case, then, Delaware at large. That's a tough one, David. That's a good question, though. Do you think Delaware at large can flip? Civics has had Biden a little bit low. They're a good pollster. They certainly are. But they've had Biden a little bit low compared to everybody else. Is he in the high 30s to low 40s in Delaware? Probably. But there has been times when Republicans have had good midterms where they have had opportunities to take that. And then also even senator races, as you know, but bad candidates definitely screwed that up. So I'm not sure we're there yet. I will say this, though, and I see it trending in the bottom. Cook Politico report put out that anything a single-digit Biden district is in jeopardy or at play at this point because the situation has deteriorated for Democrats. The situation has been bad for Democrats. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. The truth is, the number is really Biden plus 12. If it's 12 or below, they're in trouble. Now, you can't just apply an overall standard to every single district the way they do and the way others do. That's not how elections work. Candidates matter. There are definitely some races that will buck the trend that others will see. that's the way it goes. And there will definitely be districts that nobody sees as being in play that will go. This happens every single midterm where we have a first term incumbent midterm where it's really bad, for the incumbent party. Okay. Happens all the time. Republicans almost lost a seat in Kentucky. There were seats, where it was like single digits. Once we saw that happening, we knew it was going to be a bad day for Republicans in the House. Carlos Carbello lost in Florida. This happens all the time. In 2014, 2010, of course. In 2020, there were districts that Democrats lost that nobody saw coming. So this will always be the case. So for them to make this blanket statement where anything Biden single digit and below, if you take just New Jersey, Virginia, the New York Assembly District, races we've seen so far in South Carolina, Florida, and California, there have been swings. You had 12 plus in Virginia, and in a state like New York, we've seen, and in California, we've seen even bigger swings. So, or overall support, Republican support increasing far beyond single digit Biden. All right. Republican districts that got much more Republican, Trump +5 that went to Trump +32 or Republican +32. So there are always going to be these exceptions. And I would caution you to blanket all these races with the same rule, because it doesn't work that way. It simply doesn't. And then there will be, talking about California 13 right now, there will be, again, there are instances where candidates matter. And I'll show it right now. As a matter of fact, I'm sure David won't mind. Where are you, California? Even though there's a new candidate who has filed and gotten in the race, he's probably among the worst potential candidates that so far have declared. So yeah, I'm serious. I'm trying to be
It's
nice
the truth, though. It's the truth.
It's the truth. Duarte is probably, and I hate to even give him any air, but he's worse than some of the other candidates. I think Matt Stoll would have been a stronger candidate than him. I think Hang, she doesn't believe in campaigning on the ground. I'm serious. She believes in social media campaigns and wasting ads on television, wasting money with television ads. So, she's a little bit different, but the fact is, we have right here the generic ballot. Republicans finally took a lead in last month, 42.4 to 39.9. Democrats have had a small single-digit lead on the generic ballot, but only David Giglio led the actual candidates. The rest of them, both Phil Arbaio and Adam Gray, who many people view Adam Gray to be the stronger Democratic candidate. However, there are left-wing and progressive groups like the SIEU and others that are backing Phil Arbaio because they believe Adam Gray is a corporate Democrat, and he is. He is a corporatist Democrat. He's big pharma. He's big everything. He was taking money from OxyContin producers when people were dying. That's the kind of guy he is. He also is someone, Phil Arbaio whacked him, and correctly so. Don't pretend like you're trying to lower people's gas prices if you voted for the state gas tax and then failed to appear not once, not twice, but 3 times for the vote to suspend the state gas tax because gas prices have been so high. But again, only David is going to win this district. I will say this right now. If anybody, and it's not just because I've done polling for David, it's the damn truth. If anybody but David Giglio is nominated on the Republican side, Republicans can count California 13 out. They can count it as a loss. You cannot make up deficits like this. We have in-depth interviewed these people and asked them what it is. He's got a ground game. He's been talking to them for a year. He's been building personal relationships, and he's just a dude. They're not going to go. It's like, I'll go with the devil I know over the devil I don't know. They don't like politicians, which is why, by the way, Donald Trump lost this district by 12 points. He now leads Biden here. He had a horrible unfavorable rating when we first started. It's now about even, a little bit positive. There's a change going on, but it's not carrying over to just any Republican. You can see from the generic ballot, they want to vote Republican. They want to, but they're not going to vote for a big donor, water thief, and ground polluter. It's not going to happen. Maybe 10% of the electorate will find that whole scandal to be, something they can sympathize with that guy over. But the vast majority of this district does not view it that way. And Adam Gray will bury him on it. He has no chance. Look directly at me right now, ladies and gentlemen. No chance. If it's anybody but David, then Republicans will lose the seat. It's that simple. And it may be closer than normal, but they will lose it. They're looking for somebody who's just like, oh, I'm a school teacher and a small business owner. And, there's just things about his bio, and he's very likable. When he's on the ground, right, Laura, he's just likable, right? People like him, right? Am I putting that correctly?
He is very, 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 very likable. Very likable, very genuine, very sweet. Just, the type of person that you could sit down with and just have a nice conversation and actually know that person is listening to you at the same time. So great communicator too.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Like this Hispanic woman. Here's a perfect example. He goes to like every event. There's this Hispanic woman. She doesn't even speak English. She's registered to vote. She can vote. She's eligible. She's got this little baby. And she's in this neighborhood where crime is just totally out of control. He doesn't speak great Spanish. He brings this interpreter over, which is incredible because it's like you would think, well, if you're not fluent, you're not going to reach Hispanics. And this other guy running thinks because he's got a Hispanic last name, Hispanics are going to vote for him, which flatly they told us was racist. And the other thing, or at least insulting. And the other one thinks because he employs Hispanics that they are obligated to vote for him. And so once Democrats get their hands on this footage, they're going to bludgeon them with this. And by the way, the other one is still talking about No Child Left Behind, improving No Child Left Behind when it's not even a law anymore. Okay. So, and it's just not serious. But yeah, this woman is like feeling despair because she feels like her neighborhood, like nobody cares about her neighborhood. And she's right. I mean, David's own business has been robbed, I think, like 3 times, and the police have done nothing. She felt like nobody cared about them, and like her daughter has like no chance in life because the neighborhood is so bad. And that woman's going to vote for David. And it's because he spent this time just listening and talking to her concerns and then following up with her, seeing how she's doing. That's how you campaign, folks. That's how you campaign. And frankly, it's not just I'm being a biased opinion here. I wouldn't work with or for someone who I didn't think was like that. Laura will tell you I turn people down all the time. People call and I just say, no, thank you. I'm not interested. I'm sorry, I can't. Sometimes I'm nice and I'm like, my schedule's just too full. I have to give 110% to every person, so I can't help you. I'm sorry. And then other times I'm just like, I have no interest in working with you. If I don't like them personally, I'm not going to. If I don't believe that they're a good person, then I'm not going to help them get in a position of trust.
He's nicer than me.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit more diplomatic than Laura, who is like, yeah, you're a piece of no. I hope you lose. Goodbye. But yeah, generally speaking, I think that you have to, in order to win districts like this, you have to run completely different campaigns. And that's so I'm glad Will brought that up because that's a great example of where candidates do matter. And barring that particular candidate, David, barring him from being nominated, like I said, it may end up slightly closer. as many thought the old 16 would be. Big parts of, the slight majority of this new district is parts of the old 16. Elizabeth Heng got very close to Jim Costa in the primary in 2018. So she got inundated with a ton of money. She ran a very traditional Republican campaign and got crushed. Actually was single digits away from Jim Costa in the primary vote, and yet somehow, come the general, she got stomped by double digits. You have to, in order to really change people's voting behavior, you have got to put an enormous amount of work in. And you have to be likable. You have to be somebody who is perceived as not a politician, not a typical politician anyway. And you have to be somebody who's perceived as someone who truly does care about your problems, the voters' problems. Other than that, there is no way to break long-term voting patterns. It's just not the way it is, The dials, Nathan! The dials! Turn the dials! Getter, betrayed by the Rhino GOP. Do you think Tulsi Gabbard is going to run to take votes from the GOP candidate? That's a good question from Getter. I don't know. Outside of the deep state issues, I don't know where Tulsi has overlap. I could see her take some of the Trump-only populist vote. I could. Why? Because there are left-wing Trump supporters, as you can see in the Public Polling Project. These are like the former Bernie coalition, the original Bernie coalition, who don't like corporate Democrats. They're willing to, they see themselves as true classical or true liberals. I don't know. I see them, being susceptible to, a Tulsi Gabbard and drawing potential votes away. There's always the potential for a left-wing populist to take populist votes away from the right if there's a Rhino running in the Republican side, because there's overlap there. But aside from I don't even trade. I'm not sure where Tulsi stands on trade is even clear. So it was the same thing with Bernie. Like everybody thought, and Bernie himself said, I think there are areas where Donald Trump and I are actually going to get a lot done, and trade is one of them. But then he didn't, right? Which is why he lost his original coalition. Not just trade, but trade was a huge part of it. Bernie used to admit that unfettered immigration was a disaster for American workers and their wages. He used to admit that because, of course, that's demonstrably true. And yet he abandoned that under Donald Trump, because we call him Bend Over Bernie for a reason. He's a coward. He is no champion. He had an A rating from the NRA. He has forsaken those voters. So I think with Tulsi, there's like an inclination to want to think there's a lot of overlap there. I'm just not sure with the rigors of a campaign, the scrutiny that comes down. I don't think any of us know enough about Tulsi to know the extent of how much appeal she could have crossing into, especially, the Trump populist Republican vote. I don't know that we know the answer to that yet. All right. That's a great question, though. And would you trust Rich? Would you trust her? Would you trust her guys, aside from the deep state, she's a socialist. And this is one thing that that has always confused me with Tulsi and others like her. How could you be so skeptical of the military-industrial complex and the deep state and the intelligence, or all of the national security state? How could you be so skeptical of them, but so willing to give so much power to the rest of the administrative state? I feel like you fundamentally misunderstand Henry Morgenthau. I feel like you fundamentally misunderstand Abraham Maslow. I feel like you fundamentally misunderstand the founding documents and the founding fathers and their worldview. You can't give anybody that kind of power, even if your intentions are good and you think that administrative state is going to be a referee. Good versus evil, the big guy versus the little guy. That's not how it works. This is not. There's no one side of a government that is more virtuous than the other. The more power you give, the more corrupt, obviously, they will become. Which is why the national security state is so damn corrupt. Because they have so much more power than the rest of the administrative state outside of the IRS. Treasury, right? Which, by the way, tax day just passed. If they were being good stewards with my money, it wouldn't make me sick to my stomach to the point where I want to vomit to hand over that kind of money to the IRS. But you have to. They're just not good stewards. And I just don't see this willingness to trust every other agency in the federal government except for these. Maybe Tulsi isn't done with her transformation yet. Maybe her views are evolving and she isn't there yet. But I just think it's a bit of a joke. That's another great question from Locals Descendant writer. Don and I have absolutely addressed this. Why did rhinos like Abbott and Crenshaw do so well in Texas? Look, take Abbott's race, for instance. And I think with Crenshaw, in the case of Crenshaw, the opposition was not, they did not do a good job. Even worse against Abbott. Allen West, by all accounts, a good guy. By all accounts, a solid and true believer in his views. All right. He had a firm, Paradigm Strategies, that told him he was leading. If you get bad information in a campaign, if you have a pollster who's willing to do bio push polls, well, speaking of David Gillio in California 13, he's got some opponents who are willing to do bio push polls. And it's like, so-and-so is a great patriot and has this and that, and that David Gillio is just like he plays with baseball cards. Like, who would you vote for? That's a bio push poll. All right. Paradigm Strategies obviously gave Allen West some really bad data. And there's just too many people out there that are willing to do that. Pollsters do their clients a gross and disservice when they do things like that, which is what happened with Allen West. Clearly, Allen West was not in the lead, even though they say, well, we had a different likely voter model, modeled out. No, you didn't. You did not miss by 40 points because of your likely voter model. You did not. Come on. Even in California, the likely voter model only accounted for about 10 points in some of the polling. We had it very close about 6 weeks before the election. It wasn't the likely voter model that gave Gavin Newsom a 20-point jump. It was Republicans. Their campaign collapsed and over that time period. In Texas, it was like a week or two. If you think you're ahead, and if you think you're speaking to the voters about the issues they care about, and you're not, then you're running a bad campaign. I mean, that's what in Texas, he thought he was doing well, and he thought he was ahead. He was not speaking to the issues that voters cared about the most. He was speaking to a base, a chunk, which is why he got, 20-something percent. What was it, 20 or 30-something percent? He was speaking to the base, but he got clobbered. Abbott clobbered him by 30 points when he believed he was close to 10 ahead. That's malpractice on behalf of that pollster. I don't know who runs that firm. You have an open invitation to come on the show, Paradigm, and tell us how the hell you gave your client a number that incorrect. You are very welcome to come on and explain yourself. But I don't know that that's possible. I have never given a client numbers anywhere near that inaccurate. And especially not in large states like that. I mean, they're tough. Some of them are tough. Texas, tough. And California's a tough, very diverse state, One of the biggest praises we ever got was from Travis Allen. I mean, that was a huge crowded race. Every single candidate was in the sampling era. Every single one. By the way, that was another wonderful Trump decision to back John Cox. He was told to back Cox because Cox was more of a moderate and it would help them save the House. He believed it. It was not true. He believed it, and one tweet killed us. We collapsed in like over 48 to 72 hours because we were tracking for Travis at the time. Just completely collapsed because of a tweet. I've been on the ass end of a Trump endorsement. All right. It is not, there's like nothing you can do, especially back then. Yeah, Zelensky promised. Great. That's what I'm saying. Zelensky pissed off all sides, which is why his approval rating was in the dookie. Before this conflict started, nearly 6 in 10 disapproved of the job Zelensky was doing. He ran promising everyone a little something. He ran promising to end the murder in the Donbas, right? All of that. He ran promising to end U.S. interference, really corruption, coming out of the embassy in Kiev. He promised to get rid of the Nazi elements that some of you you refuse to admit exist, which is permeating the Ukrainian army. He promised to remove, that remaining corrupt element from Petro Poroshenko's regime. He delivered on nothing to nobody. He delivered. The murder continued in eastern Ukraine. The genocide continued, although it did slow. It did slow. It nonetheless continued under Zelensky. If you identified as Eastern, Pan-Slavic, civilian or not, the Ukrainian army was out to kill you. He did nothing. He did not put an end to that. He did not put an end to the corruption in Ukraine. In Kiev. He tried. It sounded like he tried in that phone call that they used to impeach Donald Trump. It sounded like he was trying at least to get the ball rolling, which is why he, not Donald Trump, brought up Rudy Giuliani. He was asking for Rudy Giuliani to come and help root out the corruption. You wouldn't know that if you read the mainstream media because they were literally cutting 500 plus words out of different sections in the transcript to make you think they were talking about something they were not. But ultimately, Zelensky, he bitched. He bitched out. He sat quiet while Donald Trump was persecuted. The people who were from Poroshenko's regime persisted. They were actually the ones who communicated with all of those ambassadors you heard from. The poor and abused Maria Yovanovitch. Joke. It doesn't get more cutthroat than Maria Yovanovitch. It doesn't. But she played the abused, I'm just a woman. A poor woman of public service, I'm a servant. Abused by this guy. Donald Trump, this misogynist who doesn't like me because I'm a woman trying to ferret out corruption. What a joke. What a total joke. Anyway. I'm sorry. Water. I'm making myself choke over here laughing at this. The performance of this woman. Speaking of L. Todd Wood, speaking of it, absolutely has pictures of this woman with Russian gangsters. This is the biggest joke. That she was some soft, poor woman persecuted by the big bad Donald Trump. Oh my God. And how many people believe this crap? This woman will stab you in the back. She will slice your throat the minute you give her a chance to. She's a horrible crook. And she portrayed herself as some public servant just trying to, fight. I'm an anti-corruption. Artemis, Speaking of CD, I think it's still probably on the front page right now. But if not, you can look it up. Her National Anti-Corruption Bureau was actually a bureau to preserve corruption. That's the truth of it. And her hand-picked leader just admitted it to Todd Wood, who, by the way, knew that the Black Ledger that was leaked to the New York Times was a scam. And it came from them. Nabu. Now he's got no stake in them. He's got no problem. So he just admits it. Todd is like, hey, why don't you come clean on this? Yup, I'm a crook. They're all crooks, but it doesn't matter now anyway. So, Yeah, we leaked that to the New York Times. Yeah. We left a whole bunch of context out. Yeah, we fabricated a bunch of this stuff. Yep. You'd think something like that would make a headline in the New York Times and the Washington Post and all the rest of them, since they covered the original lie. So you would think they'd want to set the record straight, right? Oh, no. That would be something for honest media to do. We are so sorry. We want to apologize to our readers for pushing disinformation that it appears members of the Obama administration colluded to put out with corrupt elements in Ukraine. And from the bottom of our hearts, we are sorry that we misled you. That's the way legitimate media used to behave. Nope. They just keep on going. It's unbelievable. Absolutely disgusting. What USA for Laura? Janich, can you post a link for the USA Today, for that USA Today link? You're talking about Zelensky's speech? Is that what she's asking for? Because I can get that if that's what she's talking about. Let me see if I still have it right handy here. Right handy here. Yep, there it is. There it is. Hold on, I get it for you. Where'd that come from, that question? That came from Locals?
Rumble.
Getter? Rumble? Okay. It's going in the Rumble thing right now, okay? Woo, look at all that on Rumble. Look at that going back. There it is. All right. There it is. That was from, and it's on Twitter, so you'd have to get it. Another thing here. Here's another one. One hand CNN tells you, a couple of weeks ago, like Glenn was saying, by the way, if you haven't seen Glenn's show, New York City Guns, check it out. Always so damn entertaining. It's late at night. I like to put it on late, and listen while I'm kind of like wrapping up a day or something. Always good stuff. You should check it out. Laura, let them know, or give them a link for, if you guys are night owls, you'll love Glenn's show. And he doesn't pull any punches. Like Laura's always yelling at me for swearing. He's hysterical. All right. But as Glenn pointed out before, a couple of weeks ago, they're telling you basically that, the Russian army's stuck in the mud and they're all going to flee and sell themselves to Ukraine and to slavery, right? I mean, it was ridiculous, right? They're still going on with this nonsense. And yet they have a headline up right now on CNN International. Oleg Tinkov, the billionaire founder of the big Russian digital bank, blasted Russia's insane war in Ukraine and urged the West, are you ready? Urged the West to help President Vladimir Putin find an off-ramp and, to quote, stop this massacre. What are you talking about? I thought the Russians were running out of fuel and food. Right, Glenn? 3 days. They only had 3 days worth of MREs, last they told us on CNN. They couldn't take Mariupol. What massacre? They're losing. Western media says they're losing. The same freaking outlet says they're losing. They can't, it's like a liar who can't keep track of your lies. So you tell new lies to cover up for your old lies. They lie so much, they don't even try to cover their tracks anymore. They just have headlines that are completely contradictory to one another. That's how much these people are at this point. And they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn whether or not you see that. They don't care. Ooh, good question by John Allen. Could you see Carrie Lake as Trump's VP if she wins Arizona? Yes. Yes. I still think it would be a little bit too soon, but it definitely would not be the first time that somebody was plucked halfway through their first term. Look, Kamala Harris had no experience. Look at her. Check the box.
Well, she did have experience, but
Oh, here we go, Laura. I'm disappearing. Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead. I'm out of here.
I can't now. You're making me laugh. It's just too easy, like her. Oh, did I say that?
Oh, I have no respect for the woman whatsoever, Laura. I don't. You know why, too? Because I have a daughter. And I don't want her at all to be a role model. I have no respect for the Vice President of the United States. It's not partisan. It has nothing to do with partisanship. It has nothing to do with ideology or views or nothing. It's a matter of her as a person and as a father.
I, as a grown woman, am offended and appalled that this is the first VP woman ever to grace the United States. And the problem is the woman has no grace, no class, no nothing.
I feel for you ladies. This is the first one you get. I would have rather had, what's her name? She's passed away now. Mondale picked her. Come on, guys. I'm forgetting her name. She was something, though. I mean, I didn't agree with most of the stuff she said, but she at least was, by all accounts anyway, unless I don't know something, she at least was a decent person. But she was weak, and America was definitely not ready to give up the reins of power being held by Reagan, and Bush, for her and Mondale. Oh man, I'm like really drawing a blank here. Geraldine something, right? Somebody help me out here. Protected Concert Activity PCA, Geraldine Ferraro. Thank you. By all accounts, at least. And a lot of people, guys. I saw a lot of people. By all accounts, at least she was like a woman who didn't do that to get ahead. Ding. It's just too easy. It's too easy. Anyway, I could see somebody like a Carrie Lake as Trump's VP pick. I could. I really ultimately think it would be spicy, but I really ultimately think that it should be DeSantis.
Absolutely. He's put the time in, and he's been kicked and beaten and bruised, and yet stood back up and just brushed it off his shoulders like it was nothing. So yeah, he's a man of character. I think he deserves it.
I don't know how you couldn't pick Ron DeSantis. I just don't. I mean, there's nobody else who has pushed. There's nobody else who has done more. Like Larry Arnn said, President Larry Arnn of Hillsdale, he's he is the most important politician holding office today. Republican politician holding office today. I totally agree with that. I mean, there's nobody else. There's only one, right, Richard? There's only one. There is no, and I get it, and maybe she's got a future somewhere. I actually do think, by the way, too, a lot of people keep going on with this thing, like they're trying to lump Carrie Lake in with like Kelly Ward. Oh well, Kelly Ward couldn't win, so you had to go with Flake or you had to go with McCain. That's bullcrap. If McSally did not come out of nowhere and derail what was rightfully Dr. Kelly Ward's, you may have been talking about a different senator right now. In 2018, I think Dr. Kelly Ward could have beaten Mark Kelly. I do. Why? Because the base liked her more. Who did McSally underperform with? Not once, but twice. The Trump voter who described themselves as a moderate to conservative independent. Donald Trump stopped Joe Biden among this group of people by 30 points. McSally split them both times. All she needed to do was lead. But that group, what did they care about? They care about Trump issues. With that vote, Ward would have beat McSally. Ward would have beat Sinema in 18. We wouldn't have even been having that conversation. And then in the Mark Kelly fight, might have been a little bit tougher either way, but Mark Kelly wasn't a factor at that point. It was Kirsten Sinema. Now, because of that mistake, that establishment mistake, this idea that they had to come in and rescue the Republican voter from themselves, right? Because this is what they think. Like, Republican voters are too stupid to nominate their own person. They felt they had to come in, appoint, and by the way, who did this? Your current governor. Ducey did this. He and the Republican establishment did it. They should have just kept their noses out of it, and Kelly Ward would have beaten Kirsten Sinema, which I think I misspoke before. And that would have been it. Now, good luck getting rid of Kirsten Sinema. That is one smart lady. She is much more politically savvy than anybody gave her credit for, and she is going to be incredibly difficult to unseat. And this same argument they're trying to apply to Kerry Lake. That's bullcrap. Kerry Lake is stronger against Hobbs than the rest of them. She is the strongest candidate. That's it. Kerry, I don't know if you want somebody who's got a shot to win and also will represent your views. It's her. She is one smart cookie and fiery. Did you see her abuse and manhandle that CBS reporter when she tried to? I think it was CBS, right? You believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump? Because every Republican's going to get that question. She abused her and totally turned it around on her. Destroyed her. Just totally destroyed her. Made her look like a complete ideological fraud. And educated her on the report that came out. But how would you know? You didn't report on it anyway. You lie about it to the people anyway. So how the hell would you? Oh, it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. You know? I mean, if you're on that side, I mean, you should be ready to like paint your stomach and chest and get the like Kerry Lake Viking hat on or something. You know? Like that kind of cheerleading for that campaign. All right. By the way, I'm not sure if it comes out. Word is, speaking of Arizona, that Donald Trump is getting ready to endorse Blake Masters. Did that happen yet or no? I don't know if it happened yet, but that is what I hear. That's coming. He needs that. So we'll see. Oof. That's a tough question, Zach. Come on. You trying to get me in trouble here, Zach? 60 minutes. It was 60 minutes. Was it? That was the 60 minutes report? Completely wrecked her. It was artwork. It was a work of art. All right.
It was epic, and I love that woman.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, that is how you do it. I don't want to use the terminology that we see here. But I would definitely argue that you have some. Where is that question again? I don't want to lose it. Hold on one second, guys. Let me see if I can even pull it up for you. Hopefully it works. All right. So this is a kind of like we were talking about before, that there are always these districts. You're talking about Kansas and the 3rd Congressional District. All right. Right. If I'm hearing you correctly, Republicans it's been trending away for Republicans, and Sharice Davids won it by about 10. Joe Biden won it by about 10. Republicans slightly underperformed Donald Trump, however. Why? Because Trump was a little bit over 44. Republicans were a little bit below 44. Very close. this is the kind of district that has been moving away from Republicans. Why? Because there's been the industry. It's the industry. This is a great example. It is deep red Kansas. All right. But this is where Republicans don't understand that not all business is good, and not all just because you're creating jobs. What kind of jobs are you creating? Economics is politics, right? Republicans in North Carolina, are you happy Apple is coming to Wake County? You shouldn't be. That will not create the industry and the jobs and the communities that are Republican safe communities. That will create more garbage and more crime. It's not going to bring prosperity. All right. Same thing with, we were just talking about Ducey. Yeah, he's so happy he puts Nike in Phoenix. Frank Luntz and his dials helped him do it. That will create more Democratic voters. Will it make Phoenix a safer place? Absolutely not. All right. So goods producing sectors is one thing. Kansas 3rd Congressional District, as we have seen with Nebraska, right? Perfect example of how certain industries don't bring prosperity to everyone and don't bring safer neighborhoods. However, still, that being said, Nebraska, Kansas, both are districts that you will see swing Republican. Will she lose it? That's right on the line, and you'll have to wait and see how each Republican runs their own campaign there. In 2020, it was 53.6 to 43.6. In 18, it was 53.3 to 44.2. But in 16, Republicans carried it by 11 points. So this is a district that you will see. Kevin Yoder used to rock this district. But again, when Yoder was winning at 60-30, it was not the same district. Industry-wise, it has attracted different people. All right? So, it's no longer 81% white. It's 67.6% white. Hispanic, by the way, is one of the reasons why that district might swing back Republican, because it is about 15. The electorate could be upwards of 11 to 15% Hispanic. If that continues in these areas as we have seen it, then Democrats are going to be in trouble. They'll have to rely on that yuppie, white, educated vote, which, again, those communities are safe. They kind of like wall themselves off. But the supportive services sectors that go around them do not lead to rising tides that lift all boats. That's bullcrap. It leads to greater wealth gaps. That's the kind of industries they push. Show me a wonderful place to live with democratic industry. You won't be able to show me that because it doesn't exist. Service sectors versus goods producing sectors lead to very different communities, which is why, honestly, Republicans, they think all jobs are good. They're just like, especially the old school wing, the Haley Barbour wing in the South. Those are the Republicans that help the South get more democratic. Not all jobs are good. Not all industry is good. That's a great question, though. It's good for them. It's good for the elites and the wannabe elites. It's good for the banking industry. That's who runs half of these new jobs. Look at Nebraska is a perfect example of that. Look at when you get a new credit card in the mail, right? Look at the postmark. Look where it comes from. All right. Let me do one more. What can a GOP Congress do about Joe's war on energy and the border? Still has a pen and a phone. Yeah. Look, I think ultimately they can look what a minority party can do a lot, and a majority party that has the opposition to the White House can do a lot. The question is not what can they do, it's what they're willing to do. Look at how much Democrats were able to stifle Donald Trump's agenda. It really is a matter of what Republicans are willing to do, which is why it's different. Are you going to have a J.D. Vance in there, or are you going to have like a Gibbons in there? All right. Are you going to have a, Blake Masters in there, or one of the others, right? It will matter. Are you going to have, I don't know about Oz. We'll see about Oz. But McCormick wouldn't do any of this. I mean, he's not going to. He's a Wall Street cat. The BlackRock. It matters. Herrera Butler versus Joe Kent. David Giglio or one of the other chodes. It matters. What are these people willing to do? Are they willing to act as strongly as Democrats were when Democrats took the House in 2018? They brought a lot of Trump's agenda to a grinding halt. Republicans will never make any gains until they purge their own party of these frauds. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And you can't expect things to change until that happens. That's really it. Which is Washington, D.C.'s, all the media, the political class, their biggest nightmare right now. It's why you saw Gershon and others penning op-eds before the holidays. They are terrified Republicans are going, that insurgent populists are going to win these primaries. Why? Because they see the polls. They know what Americans are thinking right now. We made a mistake. And they only get one of what they got in 2020. You don't get to do that over and over again. That's true. You get one mulligan, folks. One mulligan. But a Trump that comes back and is surrounded by the same frauds he was surrounded with before, that really don't matter. A Trump that comes back surrounded by allies is a nightmare to them. A nightmare. So, and that is what they're afraid of. They are more afraid of that than anything. And it starts right now in 2022. It starts for some people in a few weeks. CA13, early voting starts in a few weeks. Same thing with Joe. His race starts soon. Texas already did. All right. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out, ladies and gentlemen. All right. It's 2:02 already. Oh, man. Friday, we'll answer more questions. We'll also have Don on, of course, and we'll talk more about the public polling project. I'm going to start putting up some of this, and then you will see on Big Data Poll, and then you will see, that you'll see that we'll add these like drop downs. So you could choose between the different groups of people that we're talking about with these social bias indicators. All right. But on locals, that's all of the insight and stuff like that is for locals people. Okay. So everybody does get the overall crosstabs, but locals gets all of the more in-depth stuff. So if you don't have a locals code, you won't be able to see it. All right. So don't be surprised when it says password protected. Just telling you guys. All right. All right. So with that in mind, more to come. Don't forget to share the public polling project far and wide. Contribute if you can. We'd very much appreciate it. Leave the comment to let us know what you would like to see us ask people this month. All right, voters this month. And of course, if you're on Rumble, appreciate giving us one of those little pluses, Rumbles, right? And definitely consider subscribing right on the bottom there, or the button right there that says join locals. Consider subscribing to the peoplespundit.locals.com community. Sign up as a member first if you'd like to get a feel for it, but definitely become a supporter. That will help us drive more of this. We did a Georgia poll because of the growth we had in the prior month. And we'd like to be able to do that more often, but we have to grow in order to do it. Okay. And of course, if you're on YouTube, we appreciate it. Like the videos if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you don't already. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we would very much like to stress that everybody sign up to Rumble. Like started with the beginning of this show. I will not be threatened. Okay. I'm not going to ignore a genocide because some social media company or search engine told us they don't want us to talk about it. That is anti-American. Anti-American. And Rumble will never do that. So I'm telling you, at any moment, it could change and I would vaporize and you'd never know where I'd go. All right. Sign up on Getter if you don't have it already. It's a great alternative to Twitter, and you can follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. You can follow Laura right there at Laura Barris, which is on my profile. If you follow at People's Pundit, you'll see her. You can click right on her in my profile. Give her a follow. She's funny. All right. And with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. Laura's got the merch stuff up. It's down in the description. Go check it out for the changing seasons right now. The hoodies were super comfortable. The t-shirts are awesome. When you get them, send us a picture. We'd love to see you in them. Let us know if you mind if we put you in our little collaggio commercial. Okay? All right. Yes, don't forget this Sunday, returning to the book club, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The People's Pundit Book Club, if you're a member on Locals, you can check out. And we'll send you out that Zoom stuff. It's Wednesday. I'm going to create that today, actually, and send it out so everyone's got it way ahead of time. All right, but we will be chapter 1, second meeting for chapter 1, because we're getting Jack Snyder's thesis down before we just move on to some of his supportive arguments. We want to make sure we have his overall thesis and what we're talking about down. Great time to sign up for the to locals and watch that book club. Everything that's going on in the world we chose. It was a great example. Thank you, Owen, for suggesting it as well to start. Myths of Empire. You hear them every day. The news is filled with them. Unfortunately, our foreign policy discussion is dominated by them, but they are nonetheless myths, and they have nonetheless got us in a lot of trouble because we believe them. And as Jack would say, we are unfortunately a society that is designed more prone to believing these myths. All right, but don't miss it on Sunday. Can't wait to get back into it. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we'll see you before then on Friday with Don Smith, all right, from the Don Smith Show. All right, all the best, folks. We will be back on Friday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show